Thank you to the sponsor of this video, the Pokemon Company! I know, right? For the winter season, they've released a collection of new online games called Pokemon Kids Winterfest. You might remember a little while ago I made a video on the old Pokemon.com Flash games, and if you like those, then you're gonna love this. The main objective of the game is to collect badges and raspberries. I am a complete sucker for collecting things, so this is ace. There's a badge for every single Pokemon, and you can get them through pouches, which you can get through spins on the wheel, or by playing minigames. You can only get legendaries through the special legendary pouches, and you can get a different mythical every day by completing special missions. The games are really fun. They have the old Pokemon Flash feel to them, so it's a ton of nostalgia with some new faces. You've got Relay Ridge, which is a high-speed obstacle course. It's fun, but I am not good at it. There's Waterfall Crossing, where you bounce as many Pokemon as you can from one side to the other. There's Snow Holes, which is quite literally a whack-a-mole type game. Did you get it? Because it's a sticklet. Pair Up, where you pair up matching Pokemon cards. Scene Creator, where you can make yourself a nice and pretty Pokemon scene. I love how enormous the Chikorita is in comparison to everything else. And my favourite one is Battle Dunk, where you push as many Pokemon you can off the stage. It kinda reminds me of the Ring Drop Pokeathlon game. For every game, there are leaderboards for you to compete against other players. Thought I was doing quite well with my score of 141 for Battle Dunk. I go to the leaderboard. Maybe a girl's on there, I just have a knack for the game. And the top score's over 30,000. Been put right in my place. You get put into one of the 4 teams at the beginning of the game, and you can compete against the other teams online to get the most raspberries. I'm on the fire team, so you'd best help me out if you are too. Pokemon were even kind enough to give me a special code for the game. So if you redeem the code CandyEvie, you'll get a free Giratina badge. Whoa. You can find the link to the game down below. There's no download and it's completely free. It's only going to be available to play for a very limited time, so please check it out. I have to give a quick disclaimer. All of the facts in this video aren't a representation of the Pokemon Company and were all from my own research. This is just in case there are any inaccuracies. Though to the best of my knowledge, everything in this video is accurate. So some of you might remember that I actually made a video about this a few years back. I was really proud of that video at the time, but I made the decision to take it down recently. But it was a really fun topic, and since 2 generations have come along since I made that video, I figured why not give it a revisit. I tried to think even more outside of the box this time, so even if you did see the first video, there's gonna be a lot of stuff that you haven't seen this time around. So what makes an item rare? You could point to the Sacred Ash or the Rage Candy Bar or other items that you can only get one of in game, but they're really easy to get, so I wanted to go in a different direction. There are some items that technically speaking you can get multiples of, but they're just so time consuming or awkward to get that you're probably not going to bother. I'm not counting any battle facility items because while you do have to stack up a lot of BP to buy some of them, which I don't have the patience for, I feel like we can be more creative. Okay, the Old Gateau and Heart Gold and Soul Silver. The Old Gateau was a really weird item in Gen 4. It's a cure-all status healer that you can only find once in Sinnoh's Old Chateau, but you can actually find it in Heart Gold and Soul Silver too. Kind of. The answer is the Poke Walker. As well as catching Pokemon, if you walked a certain number of steps, you could get specific items. There are 27 different Poke Walker areas, and all the items vary by area. One of these areas, Sightseeing, has all Gateaus between 4,500 to 5,000 steps. It also has lava cookies, which is the only way to get these natively too unless you transfer from Gen 3. I would go hunting for my own Old Gateau, but you can only even access the Sightseeing area through an event download that was Japan only. E-card items. So in Ruby and Sapphire, you can connect your game to the e-reader add-on and battle specific trainers in Moss Deep City, but you can also obtain a few special items. In Japan, there was a card to get the Regidolls for your secret base, and there are some berries that were also exclusive. There are 14 in total. The Pumpkin, Drash, Eggant, Strib, Chillon, and Nutpea berries, which were available in the West, and the Jinama, Kuo, Yago, Toga, Ninku, and Topo berries, which only saw a release in Japan. E-reader functionality was removed for all the other Gen 3 games, so they're only available in Ruby and Sapphire. No trading, nothing. Kinda makes me sad because Fire Red and Leaf Green were the first games that we got bag sprites, but we'd never get to see what these berries would look like with the cute little bag sprites. If you try and be sneaky and transfer a Pokemon holding one of these berries to a Gen 4 game, they'll just turn into an Enigma berry. Just as well, really. Because the Chillon berry is actually a completely separate new berry in Diamond and Pearl that lessens normal type damage. Would have been a bit awkward. I talked about these in my first video, and shortly after I uploaded it, I ended up buying a sealed pack of e-reader cards online. The pack I got ended up having a card for the Drashberry. Connecting this to my game makes me feel like I'm uncovering a piece of lost Pokemon history. And I am very lucky. E-reader cards weren't that easy to come across when I bought these a few years ago, but doing a quick search online tells me that they're even rarer and a lot more expensive now. I'm talking like maybe 5 times what I paid at least. But now, more berries. Event berries. This is a huge cluster of 12 berries, mostly from Gen 3 with a few from Gen 4. I say event berries because that's what I thought they were, just a bunch of berries you could only get through events. And while this is how they were mainly distributed, unbeknownst to me, you could actually find most of them in-game. Trouble is, they just made it obscenely difficult. So first 5, the stat-raising berries. These are the lychee, ganlon, salak, pitaya, and apricot berries. Of these, the lychee berry is the only one you can actually find natively in Gen 3. You can find them growing on the elusive Mirage Island. Every day, each Pokemon you have has a 1 out of 65,536 chance of being able to unlock Mirage Island. You can check this with the man in Pacific Lockdown. So each full team of 6 makes it a 1 out of 10,923 chance. Much better. You can try your luck with every Pokemon you have, but fact is, there's a reason the vast majority of us have never even seen Mirage Island before. I was glued to my Pokemon Emerald guide, so I knew it existed, but it just sat taunting me day after day. As for the other stat-raising berries, the only way to get them in Gen 3 was to transfer them from Colosseum and XD, and they were the most expensive items in the game too. In Gen 4, they shoved them in various Pokewalker areas, with all of them being the hardest items to find and a nice and relaxing 8,000 times of repeatedly dropping the Pokewalker on my bed. Steps. 8,000 steps. Then in Gen 5, they were just like, stuff it, you can get them in Join Avenue, go wild. And ever since then, they've been pretty easy to find. Next, we've got the Lansat and the Staffberry. Also in Gen 3, but a little different from the last few. Their descriptions well hype them up as well. So strong it was abandoned at the world's edge, considered a mirage. Said to be a legendary berry, holding one supposedly brings great joy. Can't believe I've had it wrong this whole time. Forget having healthy friendships or going to therapy, all I ever really needed to be happy in life was one of these bad boys! The only way you can get them in Gen 3 is through Emerald's Battle Frontier. You get the Lansat Berry for getting all 7 silver symbols, and the Staff Berry for getting all 7 gold symbols. Through my time playing, I only ever managed to scrape 2 silver symbols, so I suppose I'll never be able to experience the true joy that is felt by owning a Lansat Berry. A cruel twist of fate is my life. Oh wait, you can also get them both in Battle Revolution along with the other stat-raising berries. But again, they're the most expensive items in the game. Other than that, you can't get the Lansat Berry at all in Gen 4, but they were kind enough to give a single Staff Berry in Heart Gold and Soul Silver after you reach 1 million steps on the Pokewalker. Then there's the Enigma Berry, which was only originally in Gen 3 as a placeholder for the e-reader berries, but they then made use of this and turned it into an actual berry that's created when you try to transfer any of the e-reader berries from Gen 3 to 4. You could also get it through Pokemon Battle Revolution 2. And the other Gen 4 berries, Nickel, Custab, Jabuka, and Roap. These have pretty much always been event only. I actually have all of these minus the Jabuka berry from the Shiny Legendary Beasts event. Along with most of the other event berries, you could also get these in Gen 6 through the Pokemileage Club. This is news to me because I didn't use that feature once. Did any of you guys? Please tell me what it was like. Apparently it had its own mini-games and everything and I missed all of it. And that was it for these berries. Up until like 2 months ago, where Game Freak were like, stuff it, event berries aren't real, and they just shoved all of them into the Sword and Shield DLC. I don't know, does that technically still make them event berries? Because the DLC is an extra feature you pay for. Gen 3 Lucky Egg. The only way to get one of these eggs in Gen 3 is to chance your luck with the Chansey. All Chansey have a 1% chance of holding one of these bad boys. Trouble is, you can only find Chansey in the Fire Red and Leaf Green Safari Zone. The highest Chansey encounter rate in the Safari Zone is 4%. So that means in any one encounter, you have a 1 in 2,000 chance of encountering a Lucky Egg Chansey. If you're in one of the areas where it's a 1% encounter, then that's 1 in 10,000. And I'm sure a lot of you probably know how notoriously difficult it is to even catch a single Chansey before it flees. You literally have better odds of finding a shiny. I am your proof. I did shiny hunt in the Safari Zone. Few times. I tried to catch every single Chansey I came across. I never found a Chansey with a Lucky Egg, but I did find 2 shiny Rhyhorn. Like the Lucky Egg, sometimes the only way to get a hard to come by item is to try and catch a bunch of Pokemon in the hopes that one will be holding it. There are a few of these in Sun and Moon, but I had a thought. I wonder if there are any of these items that you can only get through SOS exclusive Pokemon. Turns out there is! You can only get the Wide Lens by catching an SOS Sableye, but by far the more difficult item is the Shed Shell. You can only get it in Lush Jungle and Exeggutor Island, specifically in the rain. Then every time a wild Pokemon calls for an ally, it has a 10% chance of calling a Goomy or Sliggoo. And then these two have a 5% chance of holding the Shed Shell item, which makes for a 1 out of 200 chance every time an ally is called. And there are absolutely worse odds than this, but it's more annoying for how time consuming it is. They changed it in Ultra Sun and Moon so you could find it on regular Scraggy too. But before that, it was probably the rarest item in the game in terms of how awkward it was to get one. Next, the Spelon, Pamtree, Whatmel, Durian, and Blueberries in Fire Red and Leaf Green. You thought I was done with berries? Well, I ain't. They're not quite as rare as some of the other things on this list, but I just want to complain about them again. If you've seen my Strangest Pokemon Evolutions video, pretty old now, but it's literally the most viewed video on my channel, you'll know where I'm going with this. So in that video, I needed footage of a Feebas evolving into a Milotic. You can only do this by raising the little guy's beauty stat, and the best way to do that is to get Pamtree berries. You can get them pretty easily in Ruby and Sapphire by talking to the Berry Master's wife each day. But long story short, most Hoenn games have something called the berry glitch after a while, which basically stops you from doing this. But the Pamtree berry, along with these 4 others that were only really useful as Pokeblock ingredients, can actually be found in Fire and Leaf Green. You can get them through the pickup ability at a rate of 1% each. Pickup has a 10% chance of activating after each battle, so that means that you've got a 1 out of 1,000 chance to get any of these berries after each battle. Fortunately, you can cut that down to around 1 out of 166 if you use a full 6 Pokemon pickup team, which doesn't sound too bad, but still not good. When I was testing this out, I sat there and did this for 4 hours, and I found an entire 2 Pamtree berries. I spare no expense for my videos, not even my time or my sanity. Next is every event item prior to Gen 4. So this is the Egg Ticket, the GS Ball for Gen 2, the Aurora Ticket, Eon Ticket, Mystic Ticket, and the Old Sea Map. The Egg Ticket is a bit of a weird one. It's the one with all the baby Pokemon that have a super high chance to be shiny. It was an event-only item in Japan, but for the Western release of Crystal, it was hard-coded into the game, eliminating the need for any event. For the Virtual Console release of Crystal, they kept it in the Western versions, but it's completely unavailable in Japan. Oh, poor Japan. What a tragic twist of fate. The GS Ball was also Japan only, but it was hard-coded into the Virtual Console release. Of the Gen 3 items, all of them were available in the West except for the Old Sea Map. The Eon Ticket was released through e-cards that could actually be shared a limited number of times through mixing records, but only through the games that had originally scanned the e-card. They sort of paid homage to this in Rarest by distributing the new Eon Ticket person-to-person through Street Pass. Oh, Street Pass. That was such a good time. Except for the Eon Ticket, all of these events were only available through in-person events or by sending off your game in the post. Ruby was my first Pokemon game, but back then I was way too embarrassed to ask my parents to let me go to any events, so I never got any. After Gen 3, event items were distributed over Wi-Fi, so they were accessible to a much wider audience. I remember connecting to the Wi-Fi for the very first time in Pearl and there just being a Jirachi there. I was a good child and never cheated, so my mind was blown. I downloaded every event after that I could. There were also a couple of event items in Gen 4 that were completely unreleased, being the Lock Capsule, which was intended to be transferred to Black and White to get the TM Snarl, and the Azure Flute, which was to go to the Hall of Origin and catch Arceus. I'm gonna finish with the most thrilling item of them all. Brick Piece. I don't even have an image for this one because it's from Gen 2, so you'll have to make do with my top-notch editing skills. So the Brick Piece isn't particularly difficult to get, but it's just so random that I have to talk about it. So the only way to get a Brick Piece is to trade over a Machop from Gen 1 to 2, and boom, it'll be holding a brick. What a nice gift. If not, a little threatening. It has absolutely no purpose and sells for only 25 Pokédollars. Whoa, by my standards, this was a chonker of a video. I just started writing and didn't stop. You know, there's probably a bunch of items that I've missed. I don't know. Tell me if I have. I want to give a thank you to the Pokemon Company again for sponsoring the video. If you haven't already, you should check out Pokemon Kids Winterfest down below. It's really fun. If anyone's interested, I uploaded a new animation on Luvi. It's about me nearly catching rabies, it's fun. I would like to stream more on Twitch this year, so if you haven't already, then check out my Twitch down below, because that's where I'm gonna be streaming. Happy New Year! I'm not 100% sure what side of the year I'm uploading this on, but Happy New Year nonetheless!